Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Rod Litkey. I'm the Chief Operating Officer of CIS Week, and welcome to this afternoon's webinar. These webinar series we built entitled the Second Tuesday Webinars, and they occur on the second Tuesday of each month at this time, depending on your time zone, 2 Eastern, 1 Central, and so on. I'll remind you that CIS Week is April 30th through May 4th of next year. It'll be at the Gaylord Texan in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and registration will open in about 1 month. One other reminder is Expanding Excellence Awards. Our call for submissions is ongoing right now. You can find those links at our website, and we will have the same award categories, that is Best CIS Implementation, Best Smart Infrastructure Project, and Innovation in Customer Service. The deadline for those submissions is January 31st of 2012. So, moving quickly into our subject for today, which is CIS Implementation Case Study. I can tell you, because of the response that you all provide us regarding workshops, that this was in fact the highest rated workshop of CIS Week this past May, and so congratulations to both Chris Montoya and Ken Nichols on that. I'm not going to spend a lot of time introducing that. I will advise each and every one of you attendees today that regarding questions, you should enter any questions you have at any time in the web panel in the bottom right corner. It will log those questions, and the panelists and myself will see them. I will address those questions to the panelists at the end. So when Chris will go first, but when he finishes, we're not going to stop for questions there, but instead we'll move on through Ken's material, and then we'll take questions after that. I will also, at the end, I'll look at the questions. If I believe some of the questions should be grouped together, or perhaps to address just one panelist to the other, I will take care of that also. But if you would help me, if your question is going to one panelist or the other, put that in the body of your question also. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Chris and Ken. I'm going to introduce both of you, so Chris, when you're done, just hand the ball over to Ken. Chris Montoya joined El Paso Electric in 1993, and he served in various roles, including programmer, analyst, and solutions engineer. He's also served as a manager in the corporate projects office and currently the IT director. His experience includes corporate planning, strategic planning, project management, technology planning, and major systems implementations. Ken, I was kidding Ken, and he told me that his mom wrote his bio, so I've known Ken for quite a while, and Ken is he directed the organizational change aspects of the project at Alagasco during their 13-month CIS implementation. This included the training of 315 employees, a support team of 60 super users, team coordination for the 90 team project members, and employee communications for the 1,200 employees of the company, and also customer-wide communications to all of Alagasco's 430,000 customers. So I'm going to leave it at that and let both of these fellows get going with their material. So on that note, this is Chris Montoya. Go ahead, Chris.
Welcome, everybody. First thing, I want to apologize if my voice is a little hoarse or anything like that. I'm actually doing this from home. Just a trip day or two, which I know is not too great, but guess I caught a bad cold or something like that. So please excuse my voice. If it gets a little harsh or anything like that, I'll make sure I try to keep it very clear. Our project, El Paso Electric, was named Project Genesis because it really was a restructuring of our entire customer care, not only systems, but processes around that. Have you passed over control to me?
Yes, I have. Make sure that you click on the slide deck.
Okay. One of the things in the Project Genesis consisted of is the implementation of CCD, our customer care system. We upgraded our IDR system to ZCOM. We implemented a new call management system with Connexus and part of ZCOM. We did a major upgrade to our mobile dispatch system, which is Intergraph. And we implemented TIPCO, which is a middleware for interfaces. We actually did a pre-project on TIPCO to do the interfaces in order for us to be ready for the major amount of interface work we were going to require on the CCMD. We installed a real-time gateway for payments, and we installed the very first integrated APGL integration out of the box from Oracle Utilities with the CCMD and e-business suite product. Our previous system, one of the motivators for this project is our previous system was 35 years old. It was written in TL1, which was it wasn't even COBOL. It was TL1. It was on a non-relational database and a whole IBM mainframe. The design base for the system was basically designed for a 70s market. 70s rate design, it was not very flexible for that. It didn't meet our current regulatory requirements. And we're coming down with demand response, time of use reading, different type of net metering and things like that. Our current ARC system did not have the ability to do those things. The additional thing is the support resources for the ARC were diminishing. It was harder and harder to find anybody that had the knowledge of COBOL or PL1 programming to help us maintain this. When we did our business case, it was actually more expensive to keep this system and try to do some of the things we needed to do with it than to actually replace it with our CCMD system. The project goals basically to deliver on time, on schedule, and scope to within budget, the standard project goals. Retool technology that enables us to really effectively provide true customer care processes. We also decided to re-engineer all our processes and procedures around customer services. That includes even the people, job description, job function, organizational structure, were all considered during this project. We wanted to basically elevate our customer care to the next level. Now, if you look at the chart below, it kind of shows we understood that we go along there'd be a different customer care than the rise as most projects are. And so one of the things huge with us was that expectation management of this chart was pretty much everywhere in our projects. We realized once we went live, we were going to see basically a decline in services until we got used to the system, until our people got trained, until our processes were really well defined and working properly. How did we do? Well, we delivered the system on schedule. It works as designed. We were under budget. Well, about 1.25. We're actually under budget right now. We've actually used some of that money for support, stuff like that. So right now, I'd say we're under budget about $750,000. It was a $25 million project. And it succeeded in meeting all our benchmarks. We were basically with on time and the budget scope, we were within 2% of projects in the United States for over $10 million. It was a $25 million project. 3 years ago, we told the board that we would go live on April 1st. We went live on April 5th. We were ready to go live on April 1st, however, we postponed it because of the longer weekend and the Easter break. So that's really how precise we were on the planning. Now, don't get me wrong, this was, we put a lot of effort into our project management, our planning. We had a failed CIS before and actually wrote off about $17 million. So there was very tight controls around this project. There was a lot of executive level support, a lot of board level knowledge and reporting going on. This had to be a success. We basically re-engineered our entire customer care business processes. the system met our needs pretty much out of the box feature requirements. When we went into the system, we had 1,700 requirements. We met 92% of them out of the box without any customization. 5% of them were washed out. We determined they were no longer requirements. And then about 2% of them, we actually had to do customization work for to get to meet our current regulatory requirements. Anytime we did customization, it wasn't because of a business process that we couldn't change. It was mainly because we were forced to do that because of a regulatory requirement out of Texas or city requirement. The project took about 1,600 man hours, 4,600 by ECs, 70,000 by third party. There were over 300 employees that were fully trained within the system. We ran over 3,000 test scripts, and these were iterative processes prior to go live. So I would say we ran these 3,000 test scripts probably 5 different times before we went live. Like I said, the 1,300 requirements are core CCD systems. We had another several hundred that were outside, non-related to CCD and other processes. So together we had about, like I said, about 1,700. And out of the whole 17, we were right about 90% out of the box, 5% got away with, and then a couple percent we actually had to do some rework or coding within systems to take care of. All our success factors, truly one team, one goal. It was very important that we all maintain a single objective in mind, that was implementing this system. In 2007, we restructured our information technology department on the charge. We kind of went into an outsourcing model. This allowed us to have a very flexible workforce and a very technology-savvy workforce. It was amazing because when Oracle came in, or PwC, our integrators, they were amazed at the talent and the skill that we had in-house as far as programmers. They were like, wow. And I would put our technology ability against anybody on the market. You know, our programmers actually showed much more skill than a lot of the expertise that we had in. Now, they did provide us good business knowledge and process knowledge, but we were able to really find a very, very solid technical structure. Strong executive management support. We had an executive steering committee that I was also part of that met constantly. There was no, we got rid of all political barriers. It was one team, one goal. So you didn't have people jockeying for positions or what it would affect their department. Rigorous project management methodology. Pretty much most of the people that led the team, including myself, are certified PMPs. We follow the project management philosophy of the PMI. And there was huge accountability. Myself and Joe Ganabay, Joe was the project manager on the CCD side. I pretty much led all the integration efforts and everything like that. We were pretty much told at the beginning of the project that this was our job. If this didn't go live, I think me and Joe would have both been in the unemployment line. So there was quite a bit of accountability to get things happen. Now, with that accountability came the support. We were given full authority to make decisions and move forward and do what is needed as far as making it a successful project. One of the keys was the implementation of a TIPCO, or new integration platform. We brought this in 6 months prior to the project, and we did 8 interfaces that were not related to CCD or customer care whatsoever, in order to train our people on the integration technology. Through the CCD project, we developed approximately 36 interfaces and integrated with 11 external vendors. So the integration of this system was extreme. And without TIPCO, this would have probably tripled our cost, and our current support structure would have been completely different. TIPCO has probably reduced our actual development cost by about 60%, and our long-term support cost by, I'd say, about 70%. That's how much the investment of a good middleware and understanding how to set that up right really helped us. This is all about business processes. We looked at things as business processes. We had basically threw away the boilerplate of how things were done. We didn't really care. We looked at the end objective of what needed to be done, and then the system backed it in and said, okay, how are we going to do that? You know, how are structure going to look, what skill sets, what departments, what functions need to be done. So it was a total business process improvement. Now, we had to upgrade 14 subsystems. 2 of them were actual major upgrades to facilitate this. We had to develop several new systems that were incorporated into an old legacy system that should not have been there. Some of it in the meter testing area and stuff like that. We had to develop 2 new systems. We implemented our automated job scheduling so we can automate as many processes as we can. And like I said, we use VCOD as a call management system with connections for call recording and training and things like that. And we did this leveraging all web-based applications. What has changed? Our customer service experience. We really tried to move towards a knowledge worker. Really spent a lot of time on training the employees. We continue to go back and relook through training processes and stuff like that. We're still working for our IVR stuff, trying to force as much web self-serve and web self-serve and IVR self-serve as we possibly can. We have a new billing format that's completely flexible. We can provide information on the bill. We have usage graphs and everything like that. Very much more modern to what customers want in today's world. Operational excellence was a key driver in this. You know, we work with customer feedback through periodic surveys. We are continuing to look at opportunities for continuous improvement. One of those has been the IVR, how we're authenticating calls, how we're doing that to actually really push automation through that. Monitoring and measuring key performance. We put up KPIs. We really focused on not only data mining, but analytics. How to turn that data into information and make informed decisions out of that information. So some of the challenges we had is there's a lot of data when you put in this new system. Now how do you change that and provide it into actually usable analytics to increase the performance of your call center and your customer service experience? And really, we put some quality insurance positions in place that we didn't have before that really looked at our call center quality assurance, our system quality assurance, all measures of customer care quality assurance. This is kind of just a real quick graph, you know, on where we were. This was done by Black & Veatch. We had actually a third party come in and look over our shoulder to make sure we were doing everything correctly. They reported directly to the steering committee and then did quarterly reports to the board. So if you see this, we were pretty much in the exceed area of this project. We really focused on two areas: the project management, really structured project management, and providing control and ownership of to the project managers to allow them to make decisions on the spot as needed. Now with that, if myself or Joe made a decision, we did provide a path for them to, that's their concern. So if we made a decision, some of the team members or supervisory staff in the call center or meter reading or one of the other areas do not like, they could write that decision up and send it to the steering committee, and we could be overruled. I think 2 were written up in the whole project, and none of them were overruled. I mean, the decision making, I think, was pretty sound, but we did give that vehicle to actually facilitate that process of, in case they thought our decisions were not sound. Lessons learned, like I say, we had a failed project in 2002 that cost a lot of people their jobs. They lost $17 million. Need to spend adequate time planning. That was one of the big things. Project management, I talked about that, really sticking to a very solid project management solution, a real understanding of the product and the vendor. We picked Oracle CCD because it was truly configurable. It didn't take programmers to actually configure when they said configure. We really wanted to define the gaps between the processes and the software. So we spent 18 weeks doing a gap analysis to look at, okay, what the software does, how we do business, and how we're going to do business in the future. Whether we have to change that gap through a process change, a personnel change, or a system change, we determined that. Like I say, out of that gap analysis came basically more process changes than system changes. There were very few system changes. Huge support at the top level. You got to knock down the silos. This can't be an IT project. It can't be a business-led project. You have to partner with each other and lead it, and really look out for each other's success. Need to control requirements. Let me give you an example that happened in 2002. We spent about $400,000 of extra money on this project to develop a billing for these 12 bills that we provided to these super industrial customers. We had a little Excel spreadsheet that we plug in the numbers and transfer the bill. After about $400,000 on the first one, it never worked that good. I don't know if it should have been incorporated in the other. You have to really step back and analyze these changes and say, is it something that we should be doing in the system? Is it something that's outside of the system? Or is it something that requires a business process change? And you've got to handle that scope creep. That will kill you. Because the biggest problem is everybody comes to you and wants to do things the way they did it in the past. And if you start buying into that, you will create a monster like we did in 1999 when we had to write out our project. Change management. Ken's going to talk a little more about change management, but I'll go and touch on that. We had a whole change management team, and we focused on really changing the business culture, the processes, and getting people prepared for a change. So when Ken talks, he'll talk a little bit more about change management. He's a little more of a change management expert than I am there. Lack of top management support. We did a lot of time. We got to spend about 5 months looking at vendors and packages and stuff like that before we selected the package. We actually had a BlackBerry help us through that process. So, number 5, I want to kind of touch base on that. Resistance to change. In a utility, you also have employees, that are tenured in their jobs. In the call center, we had employees that have been working in the call center for 15, 20 years. So when we're asking them for major changes in the way they do business, in the systems they're working on, that is a real challenge. And the resistance and lack of buy-in can be very difficult. You have to do a lot of motivational things to get people moving in the same direction. Expectation management. Number 8 is probably the biggest thing as a project manager or a sponsor that you can do. Expectation management is key. Under-promise and over-deliver. Explain to your executive management team, explain to all the users that there is going to be issues. There is going to be a tough transition. There is going to be changes. It is not you push the button and everything is glorious and working great. Absolutely manage that expectation. And when you do that, when things are good, they're really good. Reasons for success, let's look at these, focus on the goal. We really look at objective criteria for measuring project management. I can't underemphasize the project management or change control. Breakdown of those silos. You cannot operate in silos or have a hidden agenda. It's got to kind of be all out on the table. Strong team. One of the things I want to really emphasize is a strong team. We learned in project management, most companies don't really pay a lot of attention to project management. So when you're asked to be on a full-time project and you go to the department and you say, hey, I need somebody on this project, you know, they give you Bob who's sitting in the corner and doesn't really do anything for that department. They give you the least person that they can spare because that's not going to cause them any problem. We actually did a different way. We actually said we are going to pick the project, the people on this project, and you're going to have to give them to this project. Now, we will provide you with funds to backfill those positions if required, but we actually hand-selected the entire project team throughout the company. That was very politically tough also, because there were some people that thought they should be on the project and they got seniority and they weren't just performers and they weren't selected for the project. It's very important that you select the right project for success. Corporate-wide effort, support, we did a lot of communication corporate-wide. We had to make this a very big company effort because it didn't just touch customer service. With the 14 other systems, it pretty much touched every department in our entire company. It was a huge effort. It was hugely successful. Lessons learned, I would give a greater focus on the financial integration. Get a financial person on the core team. After the fact, we had to do reconciliations for end-of-year closing and the quarter closing. Excuse me, I'm sorry. It was very difficult for us. The buckets that CCP put things on were different than the buckets that we put things on. It became a very tough process because we didn't maintain a full understanding of that financial process within CCB and how they integrate to our financial reporting. Get a financial person on that team. Technical personnel, extend the integrator vendor longer than you think. You know, we had a couple months after go live. We should have really kept them to 6 months to a year. We've augmented that with some additional support and kind of worked through that. Huge thing. Don't short your after go live support contract. There's a lot of little issues, a lot of things that you got to work out. And you figure you may have had 30 years experience in your previous system, and now you're going into a new system with people having a year to 18 months experience. There's a lot to learn, a lot to understand, and you don't even know will hit you at the end. So extend that. Make sure you have a good focus on how long of support you're going to have after go live. Report writing, you know, same thing. That kind of ties to the first one. Make sure you understand the reports and stuff that you're going to need going forward. That kind of bit of also, we kind of scrambled in the report area. And like I say, this is more, make sure all the pieces are fully vetted when you go in. What happened a little bit through the project is we would go in and, oh, you need a web server, or you need this component or that component. And there was about 3 little gotchas in our project that, we didn't know about until after the fact. So make sure you work with your vendors to know all the pieces that this is going to take for it to actually work properly. With that, I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to Ken. Hope I didn't talk too long. Ken, go ahead.
Great, thanks, Chris. Thanks for allowing me to speak to you guys today. It's really, well, one, it's odd to look at a computer screen and talk to a bunch of people, but two, it's an honor to represent our team. We called it our CCS project team, but what I'd like to do is look at this presentation from your seat, and I am guessing that some of you in the audience are either contemplating an implementation, a customer system, or other reasons that you're sitting in on this. So my audience today are those folks of you who are considering it and want to understand how to do it well. The one thing Chris did not mention, I think, or Rob did not mention from the introduction, I think Chris's implementation won the best CIS implementation for last year. I think that was right, Chris. But either way, it's great to be here, and I appreciate the time. If I could, as a way of introduction, talk a little bit about my company. I am an employee at ENERGEN, and ENERGEN is a diversified energy company with a very strong oil and gas exploration production company. We have a history in the United States in our E&P company. You can see ENERGEN Resources territory, but I represent and worked on this project as a member of Alagasco, which is the largest utility in the state of Alabama. One of my favorite stories, I think, have to do with what we celebrated this year. 50, well, a few maybe celebrated, but 50 years ago this past May, JFK announced that we were going to send a man to the moon and have him land on the moon and return safely to Earth. And this was a huge and significant declaration. In the book Rocket Man, it's a book written by Craig Nelson that came out a couple years ago. The author Nelson chronicles the context of this declaration that Kennedy made in May of '61. The one thing that I'm always, having lived through the CIS implementation, the one thing that I know that Kennedy did not say, but probably could have, and that is, he did not say that he was going to strap a man on top of a rocket, make him go 17,000 miles an hour for 4 days and 500,000 miles so that they can beat the Soviets. There was another way that he decided to say that, and one of the things that I love in history is that we look back, we often lose the context for crazy decisions like sending a man to the moon. That would never, or be hard to rationalize and justify in today's world. Either way, for those of you who have lived through an implementation, there maybe are some similarities, and with that, I'd like to talk a little bit about the 3 broad goals that I'd like to convey today. I think it's going to be important that you understand what we were asked to specifically do in what time frame, and we'll go into that a little bit. In order to accomplish our goals, it's pretty important you understand the foundation that we had laid before us. The accomplishing of those goals would have been impossible had it not been for that foundation. And lastly, I'd love to give you something as practical and as realistic as possible, and I'm calling them the top 10 take-homes. I would love to have made a top 10 list out of them, but I couldn't. So in August 08, we started our effort, and we basically were installing SAP's customer care and service module. I think it's called CR&B now. But what we were asked to do is replace a highly customized 14-year-old system in 13 months, and it was, in retrospect, seemed a little crazy. We were also asked to change as many business processes as possible in order to accommodate the out-of-box functionality that it provided. And we were to do all this before the heating season began in 2009, heating season being a spike in our customer service interactions with customers. When you look at all these things that we're trying to accomplish, we also managed to squeeze in about 40 interfaces, a web interface for customers. I think we had 170 enhancements, and all this was done with about 35 Alagasco employees, nearly 50 consultants, and impacting about 300 users. So that was our goal, and that was our charge, and that's how we began this, what I consider at times, or many considered, an impossible project. In order to make that happen, there was quite a foundation that started with many companies, I think, with Y2K. shortly after Y2K, we had the foresight to establish a project management office to investigate processes and in an effort to pave a path for an ERP. With that PMO established, we were able to really get ahead of our requirements, and in 2001 we selected SAP as our ERP. In that process and in that selection and in the PMO governance, we established quite a significant and I think a pretty mature governance model for our company, because shortly after SAP was selected, we implemented some core modules out of the application. In 03 we upgraded it, and in 04 we had another install of the payroll system, and in 2007 we upgraded the system to 6.0. I think I have I've actually exhausted my technical knowledge of our SAP system, for those of you who may ask a question about that later. So with that foundation, we had an established project management office where we had a governance model that allowed us to have both a business owners advisory boards, initiative councils. We had clear accounting of controls and SIT sign-offs. We had a pretty mature model by the time 2008 rolled around. We also had established relationships. I think Chris mentioned significant involvement between the technology group and the business group. That was a foundation to our success, and probably three of the top critical pieces that made it all possible. So with that, I want to get right into some of these lessons learned and what I'm calling, where you can actually see our governance structure that we had for IT, and that really to emphasize the relationship that we had both with the business as well as with our governance model. So, number one, top 10 take-home, Chris mentioned, and I completely agree, is that we had to manage expectations continually. One of the things that both caused me anxiety and made me smile was getting this on a way to a 4 o'clock staff meeting at one point in the meeting. And when your boss texts you a photo like that, you know that there are some expectations out there. Well, this similarly was across the board. Everybody expected this customer information system to do something. And what we had to be on top of was what everybody expected. We had to understand when expectations were high and frankly too high, and we had to also help those who expected this effort to fail miserably, and there were some of those as well. Part of the way that we had to manage those expectations continually was one of the probably the top methods was a weekly face-to-face with our executive sponsor as well as our program director. This allowed us significant prioritization and of our issues, of key decisions that needed to be made, or key messages that need to be managed. One of the things that also helped is throughout the selection process of our integrator, we learned a tremendous amount from our integrators as we sent them an RFI, request for information. I think it was sent to 16 of them, down to 8 who were actually selected for proposals. And each step along the way, we were able to understand more and more about what we needed to know as well as what we needed to ask. And that, in effect, helped our business understand what we were getting into. The bottom line, and I think Chris mentioned it again, is that you really, in balancing the speed of the project and the accuracy of the implementation, you're balancing continually those expectations, and you cannot underpromise enough in those kind of circumstances. Top 10 take home, number 2, executive support is critical. I think we all say that, and I think everything I've ever read is clear with that, but there's something about having your executive sponsor and program director make pancakes for you that indicates a level of support to the 90-plus project team members. This, and as well as some of the other things that we were able to accomplish, was a tremendous help. But this, again, I mentioned this in the original presentations. This is indicative of our culture in our company, which has a tremendous amount of respect for asking employees to do a very difficult job. We had their support, we had their attention, we had their complete backing in this effort. This is something that they were actively involved in, and this is one of them that I was proud of his involvement, Ken Smith there. Number 3, I think, is, in many cases these are prioritized, but sometimes these top 10 are sequential, prioritized by importance. But I cannot stress enough the value of having your team understand what we're implementing and why we're implementing it. This is a photo of the team prior to I believe, the realization phase of our project. And one of the things that we have said over and over again, and one of the things that we see after an implementation is we always could have invested more time in the project team's understanding of the system. And although this is not necessarily an example of a systems training event, it is one that shows the critical need to bring folks together so that they understand what we're implementing, why we're implementing it, and what it will impact. When you're trying to implement a system in 13 months and you're moving as fast as you can and making decisions as fast as you can, it is an easy thing for others to say, we do not need to send key people to any kind of systems training, whether it's configuration or general understanding. And I would disagree with that even today, because in what our team lacks in understanding, usually, and in some cases, I remember it resulting in either a development object or an enhancement of some sort that was against what we were actually trying to accomplish in terms of our goals. Top 10, issue number 4, progress needs to be heard. This is a photograph of one of the probably the most motivating things that we did in the entire project, and I wish I could take credit for it. Our integrator project manager came up with the idea, but what we did is in our testing phase, we had 2 things that were probably critical: this bell and whiteboard. And we listed our testing numbers or testing scenarios that we had to do weekly on the board. We set targets. We were clear about what we were doing, and when anyone succeeded in a successful test, the bell was rung, and across the entire floor, everyone would start applauding. It was an incredible thing, and one that really could not be manufactured. So in telling you this, the team's the team has to believe it, and the team has to buy it. And I think we had a great team that did. When you start a project that is 13 months out, a 13-month target, I think at one point we had on the whiteboard early on, we had like how many days, 370 days until go live. And that was such an unrealistic, almost an incomprehensible amount of time that it really did nothing but other than irritate the stew out of people. And so what we did was we tried to focus on phase deadlines. What phase are we in? What are we trying to accomplish? What are we trying to do this week? Not this month, not this phase at times, but what is it that we're trying to do this week? and so the bell was a big piece of that. The whiteboard was a big piece of that. But it got to be so much so, such a big part of our project that in the middle of the night or on the weekend when testing would continue from home or wherever, we would get emails with ding ding in the subject line, and that's all it would read, and people would know that somewhere out there another unit test had succeeded or some other scenario passed, and it was inching forward toward the goal. So it was a great thing. In our closing ceremonies, we actually gave a bell to all the team members. The top 10 take-home number 5 is finding leaders. An example of one of our workrooms. I can't stress enough, naming a team lead doesn't make the person a leader. And Chris mentioned this in his presentation. When we selected many of our team members, we had directors and managers in the company that had been in the company for years. And we needed those people because of what we were being asked to do, not only what they knew, but also what they could bring to the team. And so this was a critical piece of our effort. We needed those leaders to pull this off, to pull the schedule off. And we had several of them. Number 6, one of probably the key decisions we made early on in the project is in order to grow teamwork and collaboration, we made a decision, and I was proud of the project manager, Tim Paramore, for agreeing to do this and leading the way with this, but making the decision to not work in offices, but everybody worked in a workstation like you're seeing here. This had tremendous advantages, of course disadvantages, but the accessibility and access to everybody was critical in the speed that we were moving. When you try to put a bunch of managers and directors in workstations, there is an adjustment period, but it takes leadership to set the example for the benefits of that decision. And I cannot stress enough the value in having people in open workstations across the board. Number 7, I call it look at the team, not the BlackBerry. We had several things that went on during the project, but one thing that made clear is that when you're in a meeting and in any form, whether it's a stand-up meeting like you're seeing here, a weekly stand-up that we had, or a smaller meeting, if you're looking at the BlackBerry, you're not listening. And some people found this difficult and challenging, but in many cases it was a thing that we had to do. And it was a critical piece in keeping that team together, but also our users together. Many times users would email us, and there were times where we had to prompt people to not email back, but to have a face-to-face conversation. As critical as it is to see people when you're talking, I think it's also important in understanding. Look at the team and not the BlackBerry. Training isn't PowerPoint, and when you get into that, I think at times it can be misunderstood. Yeah, you may need PowerPoint, you may need material, it has to be formatted, it has to be understandable, but what you need is we're all trying to understand the system. And one of the things that we believed is that our training strategy could not rely on PowerPoint. It was a tell me, show me, let me model where we had to use real data in a real training system. This was a big victory for us. But we also used tools like ePerform and the simulations. We had 8 trainers. We had 60 super users in which we called T3s, those people who train, test, and team support. And I can't tell you enough how important it was to have real data to practice in the training sessions. These are the images that you're seeing here. but before the training began, we had navigation prerequisite courses that were required and enforced. We had approximately 11 or 12 instructor-led courses. We had 15, about 22 coached courses, both pre and post-go-live. With 300 users, about 700 employee course sessions, 600 web simulations. Training was more than a PowerPoint, and I bet you we probably still could have done better. Close to being our time here, but I want to talk a little bit about the fun we had with rewards. Can be inexpensive. We had what we called the Golden Client Award, and it's the one way that we recognize employees for going above and beyond the call of duty during the course of the week. We advanced those awards into some other inexpensive yet fun gifts, and you're seeing a picture of one of them there on the left and the other in the box. If you've ever seen the Christmas Story, we had a lot of fun with prior to go live. We had all the Golden Client winners put their name in the hat to win the major award, which is what you see here in the box. And then we had the president of our company come, and the winner of the major award was able to get it and install it. So hopefully you all seen the movie. If not, that may be lost on you. Lastly, go live doesn't mean go home. We had quite a war room set up. We had an established help desk process, a tracking system of issues, central location for key project members, and we extended our hours from 7 to 7 for support. We had key project members positioned in high traffic areas. We had 60 T3s or super users spread out throughout the company. It was quite an ordeal, and in the course of I think the average emails and calls a day were about 85 initially in the first week. And by the end of the third week, we disbanded the war room. I think this is a testament of not only our training team, our systems folks, as well as our ability to track and manage these issues. So, in closing, the idea that everyone is involved in a great endeavor, much like the moon landing, maybe not like the moon landing, hopefully. One of the things that I remember in Nelson's book on the Rocket Man is that there were mistakes made and decisions made about the Apollo missions, and some of them are more famous than others. On the moon landing itself, as Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin walked out, they had to remember to leave the hatch door open on the lunar landing module because there was not a latch to open it in case it were closed. We did similar things, and the time is short. We're more than happy to help any of you who are considering an endeavor, and in an effort like this, I'd love it if I could help someone avoid some of the mistakes that we may have made. So I appreciate everyone's time, and Rod, if you'd like to help with any questions, and I'll be more than available.
Well, thank you, Ken. We are running out of time. I realize some of you will have to drop off to go to your next meeting. Looking at the count, though, we still have virtually everybody still on the line. Ken and Chris, I'm going to take this one question and run it back to both of you. Chris, you talked some about lessons learned, but for both of you, what was the single project task that you felt like each of you as a company, not you individually, but as a project team, underestimated? What was the single thing that you underestimated in your projects? Chris, you want to go first?
I really think that the one thing we underestimated is probably the post-go-live support requirements.
Okay, good. And Ken, what do you feel you underestimated?
I would say the resistance to change processes for the benefit of the system or the implementation.
Okay, very good. Well, and so Ken, I assume that you did leave the hatch door open, you didn't close the hatch door?
We did leave it open, and everyone got back safely. We did. We celebrated our 2-year anniversary a couple weeks ago, and had a fun time reminiscing.
Well, that's probably a good idea, is to have an anniversary, huh?
Yeah, only a few showed up though, so I'd let that say whatever that means.
Oh, maybe there's not fond memories for everybody. Okay, well, everybody on the phone today or on the WebEx, thank you for attending. And I would like to say, Chris and Ken, both of you had very, very good projects, and we thank you for the amount that you shared. For any of you as attendees who have further questions, if you'll just send them through. I know there was another question that just popped up, but I'm going to hold those. We'll get back to any of you who submit a question this way, or if you send them separately through to Lisa, we'll get back to you with those answers. I'll remind you that this will be available for a little while as a recorded session. And on that note, I'll let you all run back to your busy lives. Thanks again, Ken and Chris.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.